The high altiplano of Bolivia is almost desolate. It's very difficult for people to grow food up at this 13,000 foot elevation, but it's also the location of a huge archaeological complex called Tiwanaku. In the foreground is the Akapana pyramid, or the remains of it, and off in the distance is what is called the Kalasasaya. Now this so-called pyramid looks like it's been covered in mud, and in fact there's a theory that the site was destroyed several thousand years ago by such an event. Here we can see partial reconstruction of the 7 original levels of the Akapana, and 7 of course is a very sacred number in many cultures. The Kalasasaya is a huge complex, and you can see the standing stones. They are original, whereas the walls were reconstructed in the 1980s by archaeologists. And here you see the versatility of using a quadcopter. It gives us an incredible view that is impossible to see on the ground. And now Pachacutec is approaching what is called the subterranean temple. The standing stones are immense, and you can see the amount of weathering on them indicates that they've been standing in their present location for several thousand years. Most archaeologists believe that Tiwanaku began approximately 2,000 years ago by the Tiwanaku culture and was abandoned about 1,000 years later. However, other theories speculate that the original constructions, megalithic, at Tiwanaku could be at least 15,000 years old, much older than any known culture according to conventional history. However, the evidence that you are looking at suggests very much that history as we know it stretches far back in time, much farther than what conventional archaeologists believe. Unfortunately, in the 1980s, archaeologists attempted to reconstruct the Akapana pyramid and thought that it was adobe, when in fact the whole 7 levels were constructed out of stone. A red sandstone, which is the quarry, is at least 10 kilometers away, and you can see how tightly fitting the stonework was, but as well on the left you see mud, evidence that it was covered over by a huge mud wave in the distant past. And the theory is that the entire altiplano tilted due to some kind of massive catastrophe causing the southern end to be pushed down, the northern end to be pushed up, and the waters of Lake Titicaca, including the mud, to spill over and basically bury the Tiwanaku site. So it is possible that Tiwanaku was left abandoned for several thousand years, and then, about the time of Christ, was rediscovered by what is called the Tiwanaku culture, who did partial reconstruction and used this ancient site for their own purposes. And this is the Kalasasaya, with Pachacutec rising out of the subterranean temple. This entire wall system has been reconstructed except for the standing stones and the staircase, which shows incredible weathering. But all of the stones you see were reassembled by archaeologists, so we don't actually know what it originally looked like. And here's the famous Gate of the Sun. Most people think there's only one Gate of the Sun, but in fact there are 4 of them distributed all over the site itself, And this is not the original place where the Gate of the Sun was found. The problem with that is that it obscures history, so it makes it very difficult for us to figure out the exact placement of original stones. Now, what is incredible about the Gate of the Sun and the other three and many other remnants at Tiwanaku is that they are made of andesite, and the quarry for that andesite is 70 kilometers away near a little town called Copacabana. Notice the break in the gate. That is original and most likely the result of a massive catastrophic event. You can see on top that it was originally part of most likely some kind of wall system. Now, thankfully, I've been able to use the quadcopter Pachacutec at many locations, including Ollantaytambo and Sacsayhuaman in Peru, not Machu Picchu because it's a restricted site, but many other locations, and you'll be able to find on my YouTube channel numerous videos now and in the future that will be utilizing this amazing quadcopter technology to be able to allow us to see sites like they have never been seen before.
Sharp cuts on that. So if they could melt the stone, they could just mold it.
Yes.
Instead of having to carve it.
I'm going to show you how did they mold on the other side.
Okay.
The pattern of the molds of the pieces.
Wow, really?
Yes. So imagine, they were ahead for many times.
Oh my gosh.
This is a megalithic piece in the upper side of the pyramid, that you can see the energy of the rock just moving the compass, and how it's moving the compass because the energy of this stone is very high. So we have a lot of research in the past about this phenomenon, which one will give us an idea that they used to use the energy.
Unfortunately, the light here is so intense because we have almost no ultraviolet protection at Tiwanaku, but I did see that the compass that was inside, or application in that phone, as he moved the compass along, it never held a constant position. It kept moving and moving, so there is some kind of magnetic anomaly in some of these stones here on the Akapana pyramid at Tiwanaku in Bolivia.
Well, I'm going to show you a tunnel from the upper side of the pyramid of Akapana, which one goes all the way down to the small temple. In this drawing, I can show you the whole pyramid, and in the black line is where the tunnel goes down. In the second, we can see how long is the tunnel and how it's divided.
Yeah, it's different levels.
Different levels, and the entrance, it just got 45 centimeters by 75 centimeters. A small guy can be underneath and get into the end of the place. See, what we're showing right now is the entrances. This one with the round thing.
With the circle?
With the circle.
That's where the entrance was?
Yeah. That inside of that tunnel or duct, we have stalactites.
Ah.
One of the stalactites measure more than 50 centimeters. Talking about that in every 2.5 centimeters means 100 to 100,000 years. That means this place was built approximately 12 years ago.
12
years ago.
12 years?
12,000 years
12,000,
ago.
okay.
12,000 years ago. But I'm talking just about the pyramid. The pyramid. The other things should be older than the pyramid. So this is, I'm showing you just part of what it is Tiwanaku and what we have, for example, in this tunnel. This tunnel will go straight to the semi-temple. And there should be a lot of tunnels.
So Antonio's explanation of the fact that there is a tunnel that goes down and across to the sunken, what's called the sunken temple, that originally this may have been not a temple or whatever religious site, but it could have been a processing plant for metallic ore, because a lot of gold, silver, copper, tin, etc. is found in this area. And so if the Akapana pyramid was actually a processing center for trying to separate the metals from the different dirts, etc. here, then that tunnel could be a way of moving the material into what is now the sunken temple. But that sunken temple could have been a giant pool where the gold would go to the bottom, then the silver, then the copper, and then the mud would be later as a separation pond. Much later in time, thousands of years later, this place was rediscovered by the Tiwanaku people and became a religious center. And after that, the local residents who live here now inhabited the site. But we're looking at the possibility of dating this site in terms of original construction back at least 12,000 years. And we do know there was a global catastrophe that happened approximately 11,700 years ago that was global in terms of its impact. So this ancient site, if it was built before that time, then of course it would have been devastated, and possibly all of the residents died, and it would have been abandoned then for thousands of years. Other people would have found it in ruin, reconstructed it for their own purpose. And that's why we believe that initially this site of Tiwanaku and Pumapunku were very pragmatic in function. Again, possibly an ore processing plant. And then thousands of years later, the Tiwanaku people converted it into a religious, spiritual center. So look at how much mud there is, 6 to 10 feet, that has buried the stone construction here. And notice no mortar whatsoever. And geologists have backed up the theory that what happened to this pyramidal structure, which was once solid red sandstone, it's a giant wave of water and mud came from Lake Titicaca, which is about 7 miles that way, came over top of the entire thing and buried almost all of Tiwanaku and Pumapunku. And again, the time frame, approximately 12,000 years ago. So again, the Akapana pyramid, so-called pyramid here. And again, before these heads were put in here, before it was used as a ceremonial center, it may have simply been a pool for collecting the water and the mud and the metallic ore that came down from there through Antonio Portugal's tunnel. A settling pond. And here we have the carved statue, or a carved statue, of Viracocha. Notice he has a full beard. Now this was made during the Tiwanaku period, as in about 1,000 years ago. But it is much, much more recent than the megalithic works and the fine tooling and cutting that we have seen and will see much more of. Also, these heads. Some people have believed that they represent different ethnic types,
different people from different parts of the world, but they're so badly carved and so badly eroded that how could you possibly say that one looks Chinese or one looks African or whatever? So this is evidence that this was in fact a settling pond, because these drains all go to a hole allowing, and a channel going out, allowing the whole thing to be emptied of the water, so that all you have left afterwards is the mud, the copper, the silver, the gold, and other metals. Now look at those horizontal marks. They look to me like machine marks, not hand tool marks. They're very even penetration of the stone. That could be lost to ancient high technology. This may not have originally been a drain, it could have been something else. And if you didn't know what you were looking for, you would walk right past this. This shows you part of the underground system at Tiwanaku. These stones, at one point, fit perfectly together. But what was its function originally? Not a bathtub. Possibly, again, part of the refining process.
So we're now at Pumapunku. This is one of the greatest examples of lost ancient high technology. You can see this channel here with the holes. This is also a perfectly flat surface, or perfect enough. It is flat within a few 10,000ths of an inch. That could not have been done by some Bronze Age culture such as the famous Tiwanaku culture. And also you see these monstrous slabs of red sandstone to get a sense of perspective. And they come from the backside of that mountain range in the background, as you can see. So these big slabs of red sandstone could be the foundation of whatever Pumapunku was originally. Of course, they depict it as being some place of spirituality or religious significance. It's more likely, like at Tiwanaku, there was a more pragmatic function, that it performed some, how can one even put it, industrial function of some kind, thousands of years prior to the arrival of the Tiwanaku people. And this is a large slab of andesite, a different stone than this red sandstone in behind. And if you look very carefully, you see the mountain range way in the back. That is where the quarry is. And the most famous features, of course, at Tiwanaku are what are called the H blocks, of which I believe there are 8. We don't know how many there were in the beginning, but 8 remain, and each one is a different shape and size. They were not produced in some factory out of a mold. Everyone is different, and one is unfinished. Notice that mark there? It's missing from this one. Also notice the precision of these surfaces. Almost exact, but here in the interior there's a curve, and also this is rough. So this surface is unfinished, this surface is finished. How could a Bronze Age culture have possibly done work like this? They could not have. And now you're looking at the backside of 2 of the H blocks. And here are the backs of the 4 H blocks that are lined up in a row. You can see they're not exactly the same. The difference in the widths of some of the H blocks, as well as the openings, are as much as 1/4 to 1/2 an inch. So that wouldn't be the result of expansion or contraction. They were manufactured seemingly individually. And the question is, what is their function? Also, there are no 90-degree angles going in. The indentations are not 90 degrees. They're off. They're actually, and this is what engineer Chris Dunn found out, they're actually what are called dovetails. They're wider on the inside than they are the outside. And most people think there is one gate at Tiwanaku and Pumapunku, but in fact there are 4 that remain. This is one of them. And you can tell by looking at the sides that it didn't stand freely. Originally, it was interconnected with other stones. So that's another intriguing characteristic about Tiwanaku and Pumapunku, which are in fact the same place. It's just they're separated by fences by archaeologists. But the stones didn't simply fit together without mortar or cement or clay. They were three-dimensionally interlocking, and the question is, why would you bother to do that? Earthquake proofing? Well, I'm sure this site was probably basically earthquake proof, but it could be that the reason why they had to three-dimensionally interlock was some kind of vibratory purpose, which I described much more in other videos. And if you find that idea crazy, engineers that we've brought here have said it would be very difficult for modern machinists to be able to cut some of these surfaces, especially the very strange angles. And so how could a so-called primitive culture such as the Tiwanaku possibly do work like this? The more we study, the more we find out. And unfortunately, the more we have to speculate. That's the function of hiddenincatours.com at 13,000 feet on the Altiplano of Bolivia.
Fuera del país a poder concursar, ahora ya están haciendo.
¿Ya están?
Sí, pero antes nada. Ahora sí ganan hasta
We're on Lake Titicaca. This is actually the narrow point of the lake. There's the large portion here, the smaller portion this way. We're heading across to a mysterious ancient site called Santiago de Uje, which excavations began about 10 years ago. Almost nobody knows anything about it, so we're going to see what we can find. Definitely megalithic, and the stone does not look like it's local because we've driven several miles and we've seen where they've excavated for the road itself, and this material is not there. Not big chunks of stone of this size, so obviously, like many megalithic sites, the stone was brought here on purpose from another location.
Now we get the perspective from my quadcopter, Phantom Vision 2 Plus, great little toy. And the local villagers came out in droves to look at it because they'd never seen anything like it. As you can see, the excavation is quite minor, but this was probably the central ceremonial area. Much of the site has been ravaged by time, and also local villagers taking the big stones, breaking them up, and building their own houses out of. This is not something that just happens in Bolivia, but happens all over the world when a site has been abandoned, probably for thousands of years, and is no longer recognized for its special nature. But that's what's, again, great about having a quadcopter, in that you're able to see a much greater perspective of what a site like this looks like. If you visit, please give the mayor a donation.
So the stone appears to be sandstone, and the tool marks would appear to be hand tool marks, but it's an exceptional thing to not discover, but to explore. And this is some other kind of stone. Obviously it's a snake. You can see how the spiral goes, comes up here. The black part was exposed before, and it's only recently been excavated.
He says that you have the mission to let the world know this place with your films.
Yes.
Él dice que perfecto.
Me parece que son vestigios de una antigua civilización de la época de Cristo, ¿no? Donde aquí había una civilización de pueblos guerreros, los hombres Katari, ¿no? Que tenían rivalidad con otros pueblos, ¿no? Entonces esta es una fortaleza antigua.
He believes that this was part of the Bible also, you know, the very antiques, and they have rivalities with people from around the place. So I'm going to say again, they are happy that we're going to show to the world this monument.
Do they know what culture did this?
¿Saben qué cultura exacta es? ¿No es Tiwanaku?
No, es mucho más antiguo que Tiwanaku,
¿Sí?
en los tiempos de Cristo.
Yeah, it's more antique than Tiwanaku, maybe from the time of Christ. That's what he said.
Is the stone local, or was it brought here from somewhere else?
¿Esto siempre ha estado aquí o lo han traído de otro lugar?
Bueno, es un misterio esto, porque las piedras pesan más de arriba de 5 toneladas. Entonces no hay aquí lugares donde se puede extraer semejante piedra. O sea, no hay canteras, ¿no? Entonces es un misterio de dónde han traído las piedras, ¿no?
Yeah, it is a mystery from where they took these stones. So they believe they belong to here because they are from more than 4 tons each one. Mm-hmm. You know, so that's what he says, that is a mystery.
This video is one of about 800 that I have made and are sitting on my YouTube channel. So please enjoy.